You're tuned in to The Local Lens, the podcast from the Powell County Health Department where we go inside our community's experience with the drug epidemic. The whole goal of this show is to start having some of these hard conversations about addiction because we have to start putting this stuff in the open. If we don't put it in the open, then people are going to keep ignoring this huge problem that has been devastating our communities for over 2 decades now, at least.
Especially here in Kentucky, everybody likes to keep things hush hush. You know, that's the old ways of doing things, and that's what keeps me sick is not talking about stuff. So, like talking about it, acting like it's not something to be ashamed of. I think that would help exponentially.
So that is exactly what we're here to do. So welcome to it. You're listening to The Local Lens. Our show is coming to you from Stanton, Kentucky, a small town based at the foothills of Appalachia. Our show is just trying to gather as many different perspectives from all around addiction so that we can learn to see addiction from all these different points of view, which would help us know addiction better, hopefully. And on this week's episode, we are joined by a community health worker who is somebody who generally tries to help improve the health of an entire community. And one of the most prevalent health issues in our region is addiction. So a lot of her work is pointed towards addiction. I feel like I have said addiction at least 15 times so far in this intro. But anyways, we're going to be getting into all kinds of good areas of her experience. Some of this is going to be her experience at different medical provider places. Some of it's going to be the changing landscape of work for people in recovery. And then some of it's with the Kentucky State Police's Angel Initiative. So let's go on and get into it. You're listening to The Local Lens. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.
I'm Felicia Bowling. I am a CHW from Moorhead, Kentucky with Kentucky RHIO.
What does CHW mean?
A community health worker.
Okay. What does a community health worker actually do?
So we support our clientele, I guess you would say, with anything that they need, like from resources to housing to jobs to, just being there to support them and
okay.
Anyway,
yeah. Okay. And we are also being joined by
Leandra Docks. I'm a project director with Kentucky RHIO.
And you may recognize Kentucky RHIO from the outros of each episode. Leandra helps me plan new episodes for the show, and she told me that we should do an episode with Felicia. So recording this episode was the first time that Felicia and I had met, and this episode is going to be looking at Felicia's experience and what she does. And we're going to start with her job role, which is a community health worker.
We work with people in recovery or people that are in addiction that want to go to recovery or family members of people in addiction. So with what we do is we try to empower them with every resource that we can give them. If they come to us and like a family member says, I've had one of my family members come to me and they want to go to a recovery center, we're able to give them resources and help them. If they're saying, hey, we need help with housing, paying our heating bill, we have those resources to give them to them and try to point them in the right direction.
And this sounds pretty similar to the peer support specialist position that we hear quite a bit about on the show, except a peer support specialist is more just general recovery services, where this is more general health focused.
So Felicia, what all do you see when you're doing this job? Like, what people are you interacting with?
So people that's in recovery, mainly, which I'm also a peer support specialist too.
Okay.
So which that makes me relate with people in recovery or people seeking recovery in a different way.
Okay. So that means that you are in long-term recovery.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
How long have you been in recovery?
I'm going on 5 years now.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. When did you start doing this work, I guess?
When I was a year clean, I got a residential job at a rehab. And then from there, I got my peer support, and I have stayed in it ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you personally, does work, some people have said that like working in this field still is really important to them. Like doing like support kind of jobs for other people helps them with their recovery. Is that anything that was pulling you towards working in this, or was it more just like this is work that I can do?
No, absolutely, because it gives you a sense of purpose, I would guess. I mean, that's what I would say. After not having a sense of purpose for such a long time, now, I mean, it just, I don't know, my heart and my drive is for working in recovery, helping people find exactly what I found.
So when you were finding your own recovery too, were you using any of the resources that you're working to provide for other people?
I didn't know about any. Like prior to recovery, I never knew that there was a recovery world out there.
Okay.
Or else I probably would have reached out a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we do more just different things with these grants that we have. That actually, like, there's help out there for people who are struggling with addiction that want to seek treatment, but like a lot of the times, like, the buck stops there. You know, like what do they do when they come home? And they don't have those resources to get a job. They haven't held a job in years, and they don't know how to build a resume. They don't know how to even keep a job, what to wear to a job interview. So, I mean, we provide a lot of that alongside of what the Coach Project does, which is in the healthcare field more. So.
How do you get to the people that are needing these services?
So we are partnered with, we have some consortium members that we're partnered with, just different healthcare facilities and certain specific employment places that will be referring us people for our grant. Yes.
So people are still like looking for when they by the time they find you guys, they've like already started looking for ways to turn things around. Is that
right?
Is that true? Okay. And then that's always been a problem, I think, and will probably always be a problem. One of the things about like the community of people that are using drugs, it's a hard community to reach.
Yes.
If you're a health department or a hospital or something, how it's okay if you don't, but do you have any ideas on like how people could better get into that population?
Well, just personally, having people on staff that is one of them is a good way, because I could reach someone that, you know, that hasn't struggled with addiction cannot.
Yeah.
And that's just the facts of it, you know, that
Yeah.
I will relate more with them because of similar walks of life, you know.
Yeah.
Now, just looking at what I have seen in my short time working in this field, people that have lived experience that are working in this field are absolutely essential to the whole recovery approach working. And she's been doing this for almost half a decade now. So I was curious of if this kind of community health worker job is growing or becoming more popular, or if it's being accepted by the healthcare community.
It's becoming more popular, I think. But the more the merrier, I say, because, you know, I personally want everybody working in recovery that can, because I believe that it can sustain your recovery. Just, you know.
Yeah.
Felicia has a very interesting role too, because not only is she a certified community health worker, she's also a peer support specialist. So she has training in both areas to work with the recovery community as well, and reach as many people as she can. Whereas myself, as a certified community health worker, I'm not going to get the response that she does when
Okay.
she goes and sits and talks to them.
I
As
don't
well,
think-
they will open up a little bit more to her as well.
So, in a nutshell, the big difference between a community health worker and a peer support specialist is the scope of work. A peer support specialist focuses just on addiction services, for the most part at least, and a community health worker is more focused on general health, which a big part of that, like we said earlier, is addiction, but they're not just solely focused on addiction services. They're helping with diabetes and some stroke risks and all kinds of other health issues. So we're going to change directions a little bit. We're going to look at her past with this job because she's been in it for about 4 years. So she saw the effects that COVID had on the people she was helping. Over her first 2 years working in this field, data shows that overdoses were kind of slowing down and things were getting a little better. And then COVID came in and completely turned the world on its head, especially for people in recovery who are so reliant on the social part of healing.
When I first started working in it, meetings were routine. This time, everybody went in person. It's especially like working in treatment facilities. Once that COVID, I remember I was working in a treatment facility, and then they instantly, we got locked down that day. They couldn't go anywhere. So all the meetings were canceled, and that was before like the Zoom meetings hadn't been brought in yet. Like it took a little bit of time from that first day of COVID, everything shutting down, to get that in place. And so obviously, if somebody that struggles with addiction doesn't have that outlet, they don't have that support and that fellowship to go to anymore, and they just have it via Zoom or they isolate. And I'm speaking about myself too, because that's what I did. COVID was very hard for me, just because that's the main thing. Like, you isolate, you shut down, you stop using your tools that you know how to stay sober, and you backslide, and which has caused the overdoses. And
yeah. So you're pinning it on isolation. I mean, at least partially.
yeah, partially.
What in normal times without COVID, you would assume that people would have just kept on meeting with each other, though, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's a very powerful thing for people who struggle with addiction is meeting with someone else who does also. There's power in that. And so when you're at home and you're alone and you're bored and these thoughts start running through your head, why don't I just try one more? Why don't I just go see if I can pick something up? Or, you don't have that other person to talk you down, or, you don't reach out. You don't use anything that you're taught to do. The thoughts take over.
We've seen the tragic results of this isolation over the past 2 years. So now we're going to change directions once again, and we're going to address the stigma that is not just associated with addiction, but specifically in healthcare. And when people with histories of addiction go visit the office, she has personal experience on this.
People still, like, if I went into the ER with something wrong with me, like, for instance, I broke my foot last August, and but I have it on my chart that I am a drug addict. To them, I am the epitome of that, but I don't actively use anymore. But to them, I still am. It's like once they see that, they can't get past that, so they treat me differently because of it.
How so?
Just like I've noticed, just the change in the way that a doctor will talk to me before they know, and then the change after when they see, and then they bring it up, like, did you used to use? What all did you use? And then suddenly it goes into what all my drug history is. there's a change in the personality, there's a change in the conversation, and I feel like it goes away from my health and into this, rabbit hole of my past, which I'm not that person anymore.
So there's this phrase always thrown around at different addiction circles and alcoholic circles that is, once an addict, always an addict.
Do you agree with that? Is that true, or
It's definitely true that I have this disease that I have to take care of 24/7, or it will take care of me. So, but I also don't want to be viewed as just that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just an addict. I'm a mom. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm a coworker. I'm a person.
Yeah.
Addiction is one part of that story, not the whole thing.
Yeah. So, holding that in mind with going to the doctor and then you seeing a change when they find out that that's a part of your past, what would be, like, just so that a doctor can actually, just so any health provider can, like, do good service to you, what would be a way for them to, like, actually responsibly help you with your health while not exposing you back to, like, prescribing some kind of opiate that, or anything that would, like, trigger any of the old behavior?
Asking before just doing it, or, not acting like it's something that cannot be talked about, because I think that's the stigma, is that, especially here in Kentucky, everybody likes to keep things hush hush. That's the old ways of doing things, and that's what keeps me sick, is not talking about stuff. So, like, talking about it, acting like it's not something to be ashamed of. I think that would help exponentially.
Can you share your experience of how you went to, like, the hospital? Because you and I have discussed this, and you went to the hospital, and then the stigma was there, so you went seeking recovery somewhere else because of that.
Yeah.
Would you share that experience?
So I went to a local hospital, and they have a specialty floor for people with substance use or mental health disorders. And I got held there. It was very frightening, very scary. Like, they took my shoelaces, my phone, everything, like...
Your shoelaces.
Shoelaces. So,
all right.
I was supposed to go to treatment from there, but it wasn't going to be for another week. I backed out, obviously. I couldn't call my family. I didn't have any kind of support in there. I was alone. So I went home, against medical advice, because I felt at that time there was no other option, which I knew that there was. I know now that there was.
I think, too, I'm not sure about that, but this is where having a peer support comes into play inside of your facility. Or a connection with somebody in peer support, like a quick response team, where if someone comes in that's overdoses, or comes in seeking help, you can pick up the phone and call peer support to come in and talk to them and help them find a placement somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that would, but I think we're seeing steps in the right direction towards that.
Yeah. Okay.
I've had discussions just in the past week with people inside hospitals about that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think you're kind of seeing we're moving forward.
Yeah.
We haven't conquered it all yet, but we're moving forward in the right direction.
So let me ask you this then too. So you were going to be waiting at the hospital a week. That was how long it was going to take to get you into treatment.
Yeah, that's how long it took for a bed to open up.
How long did you end up waiting there before you left?
Another day.
Another day. Okay. So how important is it for people to be able to act quickly on, like, if somebody calls them and is like, hey, I'm ready to go to treatment, I want to go to treatment, how is it like about a day? Is that really all the time that you have to be able to respond to that, do you think? Or
I think it's different for each individual person. For me, I'm an impulsive person, especially when I used to use. So if I had my mind on something, like I either needed to do it then or then I wouldn't do it.
yeah.
But I mean, if you're dedicated to the cause and you're ready to change your life, then there's no timeline on that.
Yeah.
I think I would have gotten help either way, had I waited, or I could have died first, you know, but that's besides the point. But like, for me, I needed that help right away.
Yeah.
And this need for immediate help led her to calling the Kentucky State Police.
I just so happened to call the Kentucky State Police, and they had a program called Angel Initiation. And they were like, well, we can come and get you, or you can come in and we can take you actually to treatment. So I hung up the phone really quick that day because I realized, you know, like that I just called the state police on myself. I was actively using. And I thought about it for another day, and then I called them back and I was like, you know, I really think I'm ready to come in. And I went in. They took me straight to treatment. They handed me off between officer to officer until I eventually got to the treatment facility I was going to. It was very quick and painless. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't scared. I was, that's probably been, I wouldn't be here without that.
Yeah. So that is, it's encouraging to hear that the police were doing that. Mm-hmm. Is that a common experience for people?
I know me prior to that situation, I avoided cops like the plague. Just because of actively using, it makes you paranoid. You don't want to be around anybody who could arrest you and take you to jail, obviously. But now I'm hopeful that it's getting better.
Yeah.
You know, I never expected to call the state police and them take me to treatment and not arrest me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely a step in the right direction for me, anyway.
I would think so too. Yeah, it sounds pretty all right.
Yeah.
It would be hard because I mean the Angel Initiative, I had never heard specifically of that before, I don't think. So it would be if you're somebody anywhere across the state or anywhere, I guess like findhelpnow.org is a place you could go to find things, but like where would you even start with looking for, is that just for looking for treatment? Is that just something you have to know locally, like what the resources are, or I really don't know. That's tough.
I think that's an issue.
That is an issue.
That's the issue.
And as somebody that is an outsider to the entire recovery world and healthcare services, it is easy to think that, oh, all of these services are connected to each other. They all know what the other one is offering. But really often that's not actually the case. And that's something that we have to work on continually as communities, is being sure that we're all connected to each other, so that if you don't provide a service that could help, then somebody else can. So while we were talking about other things, Leandra was Google searching on her phone about the Kentucky State Police Angel Initiative program and found on there a photograph of Felicia Bowling.
That's you.
Is that you?
That's me.
Hey, nice.
I mean, I
There you go.
just typed it in and you came up.
Yeah.
The poster child.
Yes.
Nice. Well, that's pretty good.
What is that on?
That's on the state police Angel Initiative.
I never knew that. Will you like send that to me? I never knew that was on there.
Yeah, well, let's find a way to get that tagged onto the episode too. If you want to see this picture of Felicia Bowling online, then yeah, the Kentucky State Police Angel Initiative though is an option for people. That it looks like it's still running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's great. How long have they been doing that?
I know that I was the first person in Roane County to do it. So I don't know how long before then that they started. I didn't even know that they did it when I called them. I was just searching for anyone that could point me in the right direction to getting treatment. And it just so happens that they had started that program, and
that was risky of you.
It was very risky.
Yeah.
Very risky.
Do you remember at all why you were thinking, let's call the police?
No, I needed a way out before I either ended my life or desperation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can try to imagine the kind of desperation somebody would feel calling the police on themselves.
Like I had a dream the night before that I called, which is very bizarre. Sorry.
You're good.
That I should reach out for help through them. They're the last people I wanted to call, trust me, So I kind of felt like it was some kind of divine intervention. Because how else can you describe that? Like, why would anybody call the police on themselves,
Well, thank you all for tuning in to hear this week's episode of The Local Lens. I think one of the biggest lessons I'm taking away from Felicia's experience, both her finding her recovery and then her doing what her job is now, I think my biggest takeaway is that it is really important for people to give as many avenues to making people healthy as we can get. For some people, they're going to be able to hear about a service when they're going to the doctor's office, but people have to be willing to go to the doctor's office. They have to be comfortable with that. And to make people comfortable with going to the doctor's office, we have to turn the tide of how people approach and think about addiction. We have to try to get people to be a little more sympathetic towards this whole issue. And that is just a monster of a task, and it's going to take time, but it's also going to take people talking about it. And we heard Felicia say that this is not something that we should keep hush-hush anymore. We should have it in the open, because people talking about it is what's going to help people in the long run. Obviously, just talking about it isn't the cure, but you have to talk about it before you can do anything else to address it. So that's what we're here for. So I'd like to thank a few people. Big thanks to WSKV for broadcasting the show. A huge thanks to Felicia Bowling for coming on and being on the show with us. And also thank you to Leandra for joining the conversation today and for helping set it up. And a big thanks to Kentucky RHIO and the Powell County Health Department for sponsoring the show and letting it be a thing. Thank you all listeners for tuning in. If you're liking what you're hearing, then please be sharing the show with your friends. Find us on Facebook. Let us know online what you think about the episode. And yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it all. Now let's go on and close off this episode. You've been listening to The Local Lens. I'm your host, Nate Brooks. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.